Call this hearing to order. Welcome to our third hearing looking at businesses and our industrial base. Today we're going to focus on three important issues. First, we'll hear about ongoing issues with veterans and service-disabled veterans contracting programs. Second, we'll discuss reverse auctions. And last, we're going to talk about reverse auctions for construction service contractors. However, today we're going to hear about the systemic issues in reverse auctions. Finally, we'll hear about challenges to timely implementation of small business contracting and legislation. Each of these issues is important to inclusion of small business in our industrial base. When the process for verifying as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business is overly burdensome, legitimate veterans choose to be absent. For example, having two different definitions of service-disabled veterans-owned small businesses means we are focused on our veterans to resolve the tensions that lawmakers and regulators can't solve or won't solve. Likewise, when reverse auctions are used properly, they can save taxpayers' dollars. Unfortunately, some agencies have used reverse auctions in a manner that evades vigorous competition in contractor protections. Finally, the SBA and the Federal Acquisition Council fail to act. When they fail to act, it means that contracting officers and small businesses have two conflicting sets of rules. Consequently, small businesses can't plan, and they often can't compete for work. While the rulemaking process takes time, there is simply no excuse for the fact that nearly 5 years after Congress passed the Small Business Jobs Act, small business is still waiting for regulation. Given that bureaucratic delay it's no surprise that many small businesses opt out. I expect as a result of the testimony we received today, the subcommittee will actively pursue ways to increase opportunities for small businesses to compete for contracts. I look forward to hearing from each of you and want to welcome our witnesses. I now yield to Ranking Member Velasquez for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. Today's discussion continues our ongoing work to help more small businesses compete in the federal marketplace. Earlier this week, the subcommittee examined the practices of contract bundling and consolidation, as well as the impact of strategic sourcing on small companies' participation in federal procurement. Today's hearing examines another set of barriers that stop small and disadvantaged companies from winning their fair share of federal contracts. One practice that this committee has previously examined is so-called reverse auction, which are meant to pit potential contractors against one another to lower prices. Unfortunately, reverse auctions have, in many cases, failed to introduce or enhance competition. The Government Accountability Office, for instance, found that in a single year, federal agencies conducted 3,617 reverse auctions where only one vendor participated and submitted a bid. In these cases, the federal government is spending money on a process that does not lower prices or increase the quality of goods and services. Beyond reverse auctions, there are other areas that merit close scrutiny by the committee if we are to grow small business role in the federal marketplace. Congress has rightly created a program aimed at targeting projects to veteran-owned small businesses, especially those disabled during their time of service. In addition to SBA's program, the VA runs a parallel initiative. However, there are serious concerns about how VA verifies these firms operated by eligible veterans. It is important this program function effectively. When bad actors game the system, legitimate veteran-owned businesses lose out on contracting opportunities. More generally, the committee must examine how well SBA's rulemaking process functions. Many of the rules the agency has sought to formulate will boost small business ability to compete for federal contracts. Yet, previous acts of Congress and executive orders have largely hamstrung the SBA's rulemaking process. Mr. Chairman, this committee has a long track record of working in a bipartisan manner, particularly when it comes to procurement issues. It is my hope we can continue that tradition to further small businesses' role as federal contractors. I thank the witnesses for being here today, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. Our first witness is Daniel Gordon, Senior Advisor to the Government Procurement Law Program at George Washington University Law School. Mr. Gordon previously served as President Obama's Administrator for Federal Procurement Policy. Prior to serving the executive branch, he worked 17 years in the Office of General Counsel for the Government Accountability Office. Sitting next to him is Amber Peebles, the President of Athena Construction Group, Incorporated. Athena Construction Group is a service-disabled veteran and woman-owned business. Hub One Company located in Dumfries, Virginia. Ms. Peebles is a Marine Corps veteran, and we thank you for your service. She testifies today on behalf of Women Impacting Policy, Public Policy. Our third witness is David G. Leghorn, Assistant Director of the National Veterans Employment and Education Division at the American Legion. Mr. Leghorn serves as a mortar infantryman in the Army and then as Civil Affairs Specialist. Thank you for your service, sir. I now yield to Ranking Member Velazquez to introduce our fourth witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Margaret Dorfman. Ms. Dorfman is the founder and CEO of the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce. The Women's Chambers represents 500,000 members, three-quarters of whom are small business owners and federal contractors. Through her leadership, this organization has championed opportunities to increase women's business, career, and leadership advancement. Additionally, Ms. Dorfman has an extensive background in business, including over 10 years in executive positions with General Mills and other Fortune 500 firms. Welcome, Ms. Dorfman.
Mr. Gordon, thank you. You have, you know how the clocks work. 5 minutes, you may begin. Thank you.
Chairman Hanna, Ranking Member Velazquez, members of the committee, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here this morning. My name is Dan Gordon. I'm the Senior Advisor to the Government Procurement Law Program at the George Washington University. As you probably know, GW's Procurement Law Program has for more than 50 years been the premier institution granting degrees in procurement law. I'm happy to talk about electronic reverse auctions this morning. I've had the benefit of learning about them both in the U.S. context and in a good number of countries overseas that use reverse auctions frequently, from Russia to Brazil, from Bangladesh to Macedonia. In many ways, the best document about reverse auctions in the U.S. is the one that you mentioned, Ranking Member Velazquez, and that's that excellent December 2013 GAO report. The report is full of interesting information. For one, the report agrees that reverse auctions save us money, but points out that we don't really know how much money, and the data about the savings is largely not in the hands of our federal agencies. Moreover, although small businesses win the great majority of our reverse auctions, GAO points out rightly that it's not clear that the reverse auctions are increasing the amount of work going to small businesses. That is to say, what would have happened if we'd done it the old-fashioned way without a reverse auction? GAO also points out to some of the challenges about reverse auctions, and I'd like to focus on them this morning in the next couple of minutes. First of all, deciding which procurements are suitable to reverse auctions. In my experience, the more you're dealing with a commodity, the more likely it's a good candidate for a reverse auction. The more you're dealing with something that's a service, and especially a not a commodity service, the more likely you are to be running into trouble. Related to that is the way you're going to pick the winner. If all you care about is price, reverse auction probably makes sense. But if you're worried about other things, past performance, quality, staffing, a reverse auction can be a very problematic way to proceed. Moreover, GAO gave us good data that shows us important and problematic developments. As Ranking Member Velazquez pointed out, in far too many cases that GAO found, there was no competition. There was either only one bidder, or even if there was more than one bidder, each one of them submitted only one bid. So the government was paying a fee to a private vendor, even though it wasn't really getting any benefit from the reverse auction. That brings me to my final significant point, which I wrote about quite a bit in my written testimony, and that is the costs and benefits of relying on a private sector company to run electronic reverse auctions. In fact, GAO said that one company, FedBid, ran more than 99% of the reverse auctions that GAO found on FedBizOps, the government-wide portal. That's pretty darn close to a monopoly, and it raises some questions. Not that FedBid hasn't done a good job. I have to tell you, in my experience, FedBid has done an excellent job. They've been efficient. They've been helpful. They've helped the government get savings. They've provided a good platform that works well. They've provided administrative and training support. FedBid has done an excellent job. But FedBid is performing a function which is closely associated to an inherently governmental one. That is to say, the award of Federal contracts, and that raises issues. Not only that, in my experience, FedBid has something of an organizational conflict of interest. They control the data. They control the information. They have a financial interest in having as many reverse auctions as possible, regardless of whether the procurement is suitable for one, regardless of whether there's real competition. They get their fee. It's actually not a high fee. And as I point out in my testimony, they sometimes waive the fee. It's still troubling that Federal agencies, according to GAO, often don't know that they're paying FedBid. That is not a healthy situation. In my experience, we need to ensure that these functions are under the control of Federal officials. We need to have contracting officers with training in running reverse auctions before they conduct one. They need to be trained on what we need in reverse auctions, how to conduct the reverse auctions. As I explained in my testimony, I'm not sure that statutory guidance is always necessary. But at the very least, we need government-wide guidance, as GAO points out, so that these reverse auctions, which can be a useful tool, are used properly. I would note that GSA now has a reverse auction at no fee to the users. We need to explore that. I want to thank you very much for your time this morning. Obviously, if we have time, I'll be delighted to answer questions.
Thank you very much. Ms. Peebles?
Good morning, Chairman Hanna, Ranking Member Velazquez, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Amber Peebles. I am president of Athena Construction Group, a service-disabled veteran, woman-owned, hub-zone construction company based in Northern Virginia, founded in 2003. I served 8 years in the Marine Corps. Last year, Federal contracts accounted for more than half of Athena Construction Group's revenues, and currently we have 42 employees. I am also here today representing Women Impacting Public Policy, WIP, where I serve on its Executive Advisory Board. First, let me say thank you to the subcommittee and staff for improving the contracting rules and regulations pertaining to small business. Under your leadership, the Congress has enacted much-needed changes, increasing access to Federal contracts for all small businesses, but especially women. Nonetheless, these hearings make clear more can be done, including changes to help women meet their contracting goals for the first time. While construction-related reverse auctions were the subject of a previous hearing, I would like to briefly share two experiences Athena Construction Group had with procurement process that raises concerns. In one instance, after significant and costly preparation, an auction was closed with only seconds remaining. The contracting officer simply withdrew the requirement. While this happens occasionally in normal procurements, the additional cost of preparation for reverse auction meant the loss was greater for my company. In another instance, several rounds of pricing for metals were required. Not to be overly technical, but a formula is used to address different price points for different times. This is standard in the industry. The website could not process the pricing structure accurately. Had this gone through a normal procurement, the opportunity would not have been wasted. WIP previously submitted its concerns on reverse auctions in testimony before this committee, well cited in a GAO report. We support additional requirements to prevent the inappropriate use of reverse auctions. In fact, we believe small business set-asides should not be eligible for reverse auctions. Legislation in the last Congress, sponsored by Chair Hanna and Congresswoman Meng, made these changes. We were disappointed the changes did not make it into law. We encourage you to reintroduce the bill and persist in a fight for its passage. Many of WIP's members, including myself, are veterans running service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. WIP supports the Federal contracting programs that assist veterans in engaging in the Federal marketplace. Given the strong presence of veterans advocates here today, WIP defers to them on the specifics of improving contracting opportunities for SDVOSBs and veteran-owned small businesses. WIP encourages this committee to work with them to improve the contracting environment for veterans. Let me take a few minutes to address an issue that frustrates many WIP members: the time that lapses between a law passing and the FAR Council adopting the change, in many instances, is too long. While we know the rulemaking process takes time, it is just common sense that it should not take years to put a contracting change in place. We should know WIP spent 11 years getting the WOSB program implemented. Another example is SBA's recent proposed rule on subcontracting, which took 2 years to reach a proposed rule stage. Many women contractors have been waiting for those changes passed by this committee because it will result in additional subcontracting opportunities. Even after final rules are promulgated by the agency, the wait for FAR Council adoption could take months, if not years. While we are grateful the implementation of legislation to remove dollar caps on awards in the Woman-Owned Small Business Federal Contracting Program was done quickly, that is not always the case. Currently, women entrepreneurs stand to gain with a speedy implementation of sole source authority in the WOSB program. Every day this policy cannot be utilized is another day women business owners are disadvantaged by the contracting process. Members of Congress, along with the women's business community, have asked SBA to move expeditiously. It is our hope that when the time comes, the FAR Council will do so as well. WIP has 2 recommendations. One, in our view, it is logical that FAR Council adoption of a change should happen concurrently with the promulgation of the SBA's final rule implementing that change. And 2, SBA should be added to the FAR Council. It seems to us appropriate that SBA charged with looking after small business procurements be included in the Council. Expanding beyond the scope of this contracting hearing, I want to close with the contracting concern of WIP. The increased Federal strategic sourcing efforts, in our view, represents a serious threat to the small business contracting community. In a name, strategic sourcing sounds like a good idea, akin to good governance. For small businesses, including WSBs, however, the trend is eroding the industrial base. The efforts to maximize short-term savings through large limited competition contract vehicles have pushed small businesses out of competition and picked a select group of winners. One solution would be to revise how small business participation is measured by the agencies. Currently, small business goals only measure the dollars awarded to small businesses. Equally important is how those dollars are distributed among small businesses. SBA should consider expanding its goal criteria to include a participation rate. Doing so will help ensure that a diverse group of businesses, including women, are engaged in the Federal marketplace. Thank you for holding this hearing today and for making the contracting environment better for women-owned business. I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. As you can see, we have votes. We'll just adjourn for about 20 minutes. We have 2 votes. And so relax. We'll be right back. Thank you.